guys, Ken Gadding with YouTube channel Gamebits with this week's IndieSider, where I play indie games and then interview the developers. This week I'm playing Momoka, an interplanetary adventure for iOS and tvOS. This is a 2.5D action-adventure game in the style of, think Cave Story is a good example. So you are Momoka, this is she. You are the main character, and you fall down into this pit, and you go explore the world. You can see that it rotates left and right as you move left and right, so that you are always in the center. At this particular moment, I have no action available to me other than jumping, but pretty soon I will be getting a weapon, a gun, and then I can fire. And there is a lot of very interesting navigational mechanics, which you're about to witness. See that moon right above me? Well, if you've played Super Mario Galaxy, you know what's coming next. Jump! And now I'm on the moon. And as I run around the moon, the whole world rotates, so that I'm always upright and always in the middle. And yes, this does get dizzying, but it doesn't last long. So you can see I just use those two little planetoids to cross the gulf between one giant world and the next. And here I am. What's up, dude? Momoka, where did you go? Momoka, that's me. We've all been worried about you. While you were away, the village has become infested with vicious spiders. I'm here to hold this gate shut to protect the village, but I suppose I'd better let you through. Yeah, you had better. So this is the game. It starts off very linear, but that's only while you're acclimating to the controls and the environment. Hey, it's a checkpoint. And then pretty soon you get a rocket ship that allows you to fly through the skies and the heavens and go from planet to planet. Are they really that hostile? Maybe we could all get along. So it is a low polygon game, that is, ouch, an intentional look for the game. It actually started off as a completely 2D game, darn it, called Star Life, and then it evolved into this 2.5D game called Momoka. The half a D comes from the depth of the graphics. You can't move in and out of the screen, but the depth is nonetheless there. So there are ways to get hurt that don't kill you immediately. For example, ow! And you can see in the upper left I just lost a heart, and it takes me about 5 of these to regain full health. Yep, so one more, and that door is shut over there, so I'm going to go over here and get the key. And I don't believe I have an inventory to speak of, but the game knows that I have the key, and thus it opens. I need the armory key. So, Momoka! I'm trapped by this big spider, help me out! You can find a key to that door over in the village. So I'm playing this on the Apple TV, just like I played the last episode of IndieSider's game called Armory. Lumino City, except this game, instead of the Siri remote, which is how I played Lumino City, this time I'm using the Nimbus Steele series controller. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Which makes it a lot easier to control in my opinion. For a game like this, it's so well suited to a traditional joypad or gamepad, however you want to call it. So this week I'm going to be talking to the developer about about the evolution of the game from 2D to 2.5D, from Star Life to Momoka. Welcome to the spaceport. Hey, your mothership is here. I just have to destroy all the spiders and then I'll get the key from her. And from featuring a green alien blob protagonist to Momoka herself, and also what it was like to be one of the first Apple TV game developers. So I'm going to skip ahead to my saved game and start the interview with Duncan, Steele, and Benjamin Withers of Felwig Games. If you want to find this game, Momoka, you can find the link to download it from the App Store on my YouTube channel and in the show notes for this episode. You can also find it on IndieSider.net/37 for episode number 37, and also, of course, at Felwig Games, which is felwig.com. So here we go with the interview while I skip ahead to later on in the game. Today I'm speaking with two representatives of Felwig Games, the developer of Momoka. I have on the line Mr. Benjamin Withers. Hello, Benjamin.
Hello. Thanks to be on the show.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. And also joining you is Mr. Duncan Steele. Hello, Duncan.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm very good.
Wonderful. So when I was setting up this interview, I was told that the two of you don't really have titles at Felwig Games. Can you tell me how the responsibilities for Felwig Games breaks down? Who does what?
I think we're both pretty evenly split in terms of responsibility. There's only the two of us in Felwig Games, and we take the coding and the artwork and everything is the equal split.
So neither of you has a weakness that the other plugs that gap? You're both equally strong in all the areas?
I think Ben's probably a bit stronger at art than I am. Yeah, other than that, fairly even.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great coverage in case one of you gets hit by a number 32 bus. The other one can back you up. So this game has had a long development period during which it underwent a number of critical changes. Let's start at the top down. The game was originally called Star Life, which sounds to me like a great name. Was it intended as a placeholder?
I think the gameplay definitely went through a number of different stages. And the first thing that we had was the basic gameplay. Running around the planet, getting into a spaceship and transferring between planets, hopping between the planets, those sorts of things. And in that context, the name Star Life we felt was quite good because it captured generally all those things. And after a while, we knew more about what we wanted in terms of story or character or how big the world we wanted. And it seemed to make more sense then for us to have a name which reflected that storyline or that character and the ambitions that character has in terms of the story. So we went through a number of different names. Last Orbit was one of the original ones, followed by Star Life. And eventually we came across Momoka, and that really stuck. It clicked with both of us, and we had no second thoughts about that name. It really stuck.
So the game is named after the main character, Momoka. Where does that name come from?
I think we went through a period of generating names. I mean, you can get this like a fantasy name generator online. I think we used that for a while. We couldn't really come up with anything that was satisfactory. And we both played a lot of Cave Story, and we were quite feeling the sort of Japanese culture in video games. So we just came across Momoka as a nice Japanese female name, and we both liked it, and that's basically it.
You mentioned Cave Story being one of your game's inspirations. You have this great blog post about other games that inspired Momoka, including Super Mario Galaxy, which is the first thing that came to mind when I was playing it, and even Lunar Lander, which comes out later in the game when you get the rocket. One of the games you mentioned as being inspirational was The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the original Nintendo Game Boy, and that connection doesn't seem as obvious to me. Can you tell me about some of the inspiration you drew from that game?
The Zelda games in general have very strong moment-to-moment action gameplay, and they kind of glue that together into a much wider story, which I think gives the game a bit more meat to it, really. And in Zelda, you have that big overworld, of course, with the dungeons you descend into, and then that's the where you spend your time, kind of playing the game and beating bosses and solving puzzles and whatnot. Then you have the overworld where you explore and meet people and do the kind of meta game part of it. And that's kind of similar for us. We have the planets where little bits of the game go on, and then they're all glued together in this kind of galaxy. And so that's where it kind of came from. Link's Awakening, nothing specific. It's slightly more amusing and light-hearted than the Zelda games, I think, but probably just as the first one I ever played.
Yeah, I think Link's Awakening was certainly one of the more experimental Zelda games, where it even had I think it was one of the first games to have a trading element, and there were even some side view action platforming areas, and even crossovers with some of the Mario characters. It was really, as far as Zelda games go, kind of edgy.
Yeah, you even lead a chain chomp around, I think, at some point. Some bits are quite weird.
That's right. Are there any sort of really weird off-the-beat moments that I can look forward to encountering in Momoka?
Well, I guess we want to leave some of them as surprises, but there's quite a few odd characters, I think, hanging around in there, and maybe the influence comes through those. If you explore the village a bit, you'll see some stories going on. As it's a non-linear game, but there's obviously you've got a basic progress through the game. As you progress through the game, you'll find the characters in the village doing things and their lives passing.
Now, to what degree is it non-linear? Because in a Zelda game, you almost always have to go through the dungeons in a specific order. Do we have more flexibility in Momoka?
Yes, much more. I mean, it's much more like the first Zelda or something, where we've put a much longer kind of orienting stretch of, kind of more scripted linear gameplay to get you used to everything. But then after that, it kind of lets go a bit, and you can explore and do the levels in whatever order you like, really, or collect the bits or not collect the bits, or much more non-linear. Then it comes together again at the end, so we can cap off the story.
Oh, excellent. I'm looking forward to making it further into the game. One of the other changes that the game underwent during its development was the shift from a 2D to a 2.5D art style. What inspired that change? Because I saw some of the original 2D art in your early concept videos, and it seemed like it was quite serviceable. So why the shift from 2D to 2.5?
Well, I think that the 2D art style, which we liked a lot, we felt like it didn't really convey the weight of the game that we wanted to make. So the sheer scale of the galaxy of the planetary system, which you can go out and explore, somehow felt sort of underrepresented with just 2D art. So that was the main motivation for doing that. And around the same time as we were having these thoughts, we sort of came across this low poly artwork around the internet, and we found it to be quite beautiful. And so combining these two things, our desire to have a slightly weightier art style with this low poly look, we couldn't really resist this temptation to convert it. Yeah, and then from a less artistic point of view, I'd say that mobile games are predominantly two-dimensional arts, and so breaking away from the pack is also a bonus in that sense.
Yeah, because there are so many mobile games out there, anything you can do to stand out is going to be a benefit in the end.
Yeah, that's definitely a bonus, but really we were driven by this desire to have the art really in sync with the scale or the scope of the adventure that Momoka goes on. And, yeah, that was the main reason.
Did shifting to 2.5D mean that you had to throw away all the 2D art you were using and start from scratch?
Yes, yeah, we threw a lot of it away. Vast chunks of code, but we got there in the end.
You have on your website what you call a micro-documentary highlighting some of the first 1,511 commits. And you can see how the game changed in some ways subtle, some ways obvious. How many... I mean, I'm not a game developer, although I love interviewing them. And can you give me some sense for how many commits were required to produce the final product?
It's about 7,500 overall, I think. I think, honestly, I've forgotten how we counted them in that video, but it came to about 7,500.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the programmer's style, but roughly every small significant change that you make would deserve a commit, and I don't know, yeah. So it must vary from programmer to programmer, the number of commits per game. So yeah, 7,500 is where we got to.
And this game was in development for, what would you say, 2 years?
Probably more like 3. Although we don't like to think of it too much. Yeah.
Wow. And over the course of all those commits and all the evolutions to the name, the character, the art, were there any features that you wanted to implement that were left on the cutting room floor that you can talk about?
Yeah, so originally, and actually this connects with the name that you mentioned before, Star Life, we wanted to have a bit of a connection between the star in the planetary system and the health of the character, the hit points of Momoka. So the small hearts that you see around the game now, were originally little bits of star, because we wanted to make a strong connection between the life of the star and the life of the character, because they're somehow intertwined. So we wanted to push that a bit further, but really we tested it. Some people tested it and found the idea a bit confusing. You know, should you pick up all of these little bits of star and really you only needed them for your health? And so we felt it was just clearer overall for people to use, for us to use small hearts instead. So it's kind of a shame that we didn't have that link that we thought about more strongly in the game.
Probably spaceflight we were looking to expand on a bit more. We put it in there, as I said earlier, to kind of, allow this seamless exploration of the galaxy. But, we then started towards the end playing with flying inside planets as well for some gameplay stuff, but never quite got to that. But, there are always content updates, so...
Yeah, so with the ship, I think we definitely got what we wanted out of the ship, in the sense that, as Duncan mentioned before, we wanted to have these worlds where the core gameplay happens, jumping around the planets, doing the platforming, and connecting that with a larger sort of exploration. The ship, we think that's what we wanted the ship to do, and we think it really does that. So we're very happy with the ship from that point of view. But you can also involve the ship more in the gameplay, and there is some of that in Momoka, so you can fly inside the planet with the ship, and you can land anywhere you want, and so on. But I think it would have been cool to do a little bit more on the interaction of the gameplay with the ship itself.
Yeah, I remember one of the gameplay features that blew my mind as a kid was getting the airships in the Final Fantasy games. Because it just opens up the world so much,
Yes.
and especially in Final Fantasy IV, when you get the airship known as the Big Whale, and you discover that you can actually walk around inside the ship.
Right, yes.
I mean, the ship at that point almost becomes its own character in the game.
Yeah, that was probably one of the inspirations as well. I only really put some time into Final Fantasy VII, but that was definitely, had an impact on me too.
Right. So one of the features that you say Momoka will never have is in-app purchases, which is interesting to me because I attended a game developer talk where he was speaking about an entirely different genre of games, like Facebook and social games, but one of the lessons he recommended was never limit a player's opportunity to give you money. So why would you say no IAPs ever?
I don't think it works so well for this type of game, because I think the problem with IAPs is they kind of encourage the person writing the game to write the game in such a way that it's good and you continue playing and you keep playing and it's kind of a constant thing. And obviously you can't play too well or without paying them or it just doesn't work out. But with Momoka, there's much more of a story and an arc and a place to be explored and so on. So you really want this to be an experience. And if it's a single purchase, then the only job the programmer, the developers, the designers have after that point is to make sure people like it as much as they can, really. So I think, although they work very well for many games, I don't think they really work too well for this sort of game. I guess there are some that have kind of done it episodically, so you've taken essentially a series of games and put them as one app. And I guess it could work there, but that's not really for us or what we're trying to do.
Yeah, you don't want to shoehorn it in somewhere that it doesn't fit.
No, certainly not. No.
So I have another question about the game's character. We talked a little bit about how she evolved. It just so happened that the weekend I was playing Momoka, I'd also picked up a couple of other games to play. Gone Home on the PlayStation 4 and Oxenfree on the Mac. And 3 very different kinds of games for 3 different platforms all happen to feature female protagonists, which is an encouraging trend in game development. Can you talk a little bit about the character design? I saw in your micro-documentary, it looked like the main character was originally, perhaps as just a placeholder, sort of like a green alien blob type character.
Yeah.
How did you settle on Momoka as the protagonist?
Kind of just casting around for designs, really. We started off with that little alien. I don't think he or she really ever got a name or a gender or anywhere as far as that, but it didn't seem quite enough for the player to identify with, really, given that the story is this child heading out into this galaxy, exploring it, saving the sun and so on. It seemed like it needed to be something a bit more that the player could identify with. And we kind of cast around for ideas. And Ben suggested this kind of little Red Riding Hood type of figure, which, again, even that story is the same. We thought, sounded great, really. And we kind of tried it originally in the 2D days, but we could never draw a model we were happy with. But then quite soon after that, we swapped to 3D and then had another try at this because we really loved this character. And then it kind of worked out. It went from there, really.
So you would say that you had an easier time designing it once you switched to 3D?
Yes. Somehow it just seemed to work better for us, really. I mean, I guess that's one thing we didn't mention too much in the 2D to 2.5D. But I think we just both found it easier to work with 3D tooling and the idea of doing it, and we really loved the low poly art style as well. That has become quite popular actually since we kind of chose it for Momoka.
So this game underwent not only the art style change, but the name change and other changes over its 3 years of development, and yet one of the platforms it came out for, Apple TV, is only 4 months old. You were working for 2.5 years to release a game on a platform that wasn't even out yet. What was it like being one of the first developers for tvOS?
It sounds like we've been pretty cunning. But no, I think, so it's quite pleased. We're quite pleased to be prominently sort of featured on the TV, and we've definitely had a lot of good feedback about it. And I think it's technically developing for the Apple TV has been very, very much the same as developing for iOS. It's not much difference in terms of producing the TV app rather than the iOS app. And I think in terms of the performance, that a HD TV at 1080p is lower resolution than the iPad, and probably for a newer chip. So in terms of performance, there's been no issues. The main difference has been, I suppose, the because you have the Siri remote. So it took a bit of time to find a control scheme that we were happy with. Yeah, that was the main technical obstacle, was the Siri remote.
I tried both the Siri remote and the Nimbus Steele controller, and certainly the Nimbus blows it away.
Yeah, I mean, gamepads have been developed for 40 years now to be the perfect game control device, really.
Yeah, we'd love to see another button on the Siri remote that we can use. That's what we'd like to see.
But Steve Jobs hates buttons. When you log into your App Store account, are you able to see the breakdown on what devices your game is being run on?
Yes. We're able to see where the user bought the app, so on what store they bought it on. But of course, we don't know how many people. Yeah, it's a universal purchase. If you buy it on iPad or iPhone, you'll get it on your TV. But we don't know how many people are buying it on, say, iPad and then deciding to go home and use it on the TV. So we don't know where people prefer to buy the app.
Okay.
This is where they prefer to play the app.
Because certainly there are more iOS devices out there than tvOS, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is the more popular platform. But I was just wondering if you had some sort of a sense of how they related to each other.
No, there just doesn't exist in the analytics in the iTunes account.
Gotcha.
I suspect it's easier to type details and whatnot into your iPad as well, so I think we'd probably see a lot on the phone. Someone sitting on the train home and then they play it on the TV. It's hard to tell, really. We're just speculating.
One of the other platforms that this game was originally scheduled to come out on was the Mac. Will we ever see it on the Mac, or even, say, PS4 or Vita?
Yes. I mean, it's kind of a matter of time, really, with the Mac, because a lot of the development was done on the Mac. So it's run from day one on the Mac, actually, before it did on iOS. We just need to kind of, put a HUD on and optimize it for desktop graphics cards. But yeah, pretty much any platform, really. We're looking to go to Steam quite soon. Both a great fan of the 3DS, and I think it'd fit quite nicely on that platform. But honestly, I mean, there's no reason to restrict yourself to platforms, I think. We'll do content updates while we do it, because, I think it is designed to be an Apple TV and an iPad game right now. And it's not. There are changes, I think, that should be made if it's going to be a PC game or a console game or a 3DS game. They're all slightly different platforms and slightly different expectations and so on about how a game should work. So we'll make those changes if we go onto those platforms. But yeah, nothing official yet.
Yeah, I mentioned PS4 and Vita, but I just threw those out. Now that you mention it, the games that you're drawing from, Super Mario Galaxy, Link's Awakening, even Cave Story, were available on systems like the DS and even the Wii. So it seems like Momoka would be a good fit. It would be in good company on platforms like those.
Yes. Cave Story got that rather wonderful 3DS port where they redid all the graphics, I think, and made it 2.5D.
Yes.
Which was honestly another thing we thought about, probably should have mentioned earlier on. It's another thing you look at that and you think, wow, doesn't that game look great like that?
You want to do a 3D version of Momoka?
That would have to be a sequel, I guess. We've talked about a lot of things in these sort of things. It does, as soon as we put the 2.5D in, they thought, well, it's okay going left and right, but it'd be nice to go in and go around the planet as well. Wouldn't that be cool? Which is the beginning of a lot of work usually, but we haven't made any.
Well, if you had IAPs, you could sell extra dimensions.
God.
The first dimension is free. If you want the second dimension, it's an IAP.
Yeah, I wouldn't get drawn into that.
I'm sure that would win you a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's been fascinating to learn all about the evolution of this game and its success on the tvOS. Can you remind our listeners where we can find it and you online?
Yes, you can find us on Felwig.com or on Twitter @Felwig, and download Momoka on your Apple TV, your iPad, your iPhone.
Thank you so much for your time, Duncan Steele and Benjamin Withers of Felwig Games. Links to all the stuff you mentioned will be in the show notes. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.